years, I've been helping companies grow, find new markets, and building success for the world's top food brands. This has been done even in times of a weak economy. I hope my thoughts are helpful in your
Thank you very much for inviting me over today and sharing with us about wine. Bob's a neighbor of mine. He's been a wine consultant to the wine industry for many decades in New York.
45 years.
And at first I met Bob socially through friends of mine, and we started talking, and then he offered to, I asked him if he would share with you guys regarding wines and pairings with food and just information on the wine industry in general. Thank you very much, Bob, for being here.
My pleasure. And I got to compliment you on your perception. You've got a subject matter that really has a lot of good news.
Awesome.
Your viewers are living at a perfect time right now. For wine consumption and consumers, this is the ultimate. In the last 15 years, you've seen so much technology change so much that for them, not the vintage owners, the vineyard owners have a lot of competition. But you know, that's the beautiful thing about capitalism. All that competition brings out the best in everybody.
How does technology help the wine industry?
Well, here's the thing. Going back, and of course, you know, we're dealing with an industry that you're talking 2,000 years old. It can be traced back to Mesopotamia. Simply put, grapes were something to eat. They used to pile them on. Occasionally they'd crush in the bottom of the old clay pots, and basically that's how it got started. But it was an art. It still is an art. I can't discredit that. There really is an art to it. But years ago, you had to have a tremendous amount of experience. You know, it's the old story. You're going to make mistakes, and through those mistakes, you become better at it. Basically, because you didn't have the technology on the different variations in making wine. Number one, you can't control the climate. Number one, that's the big one. How much sunlight, how much water, density in the clouds, moisture. All of these are variable. So you have to have a cellar master or someone who's the winemaker with a tremendous amount of experience. It takes a long, long time. And then at that point, they know when to pick the grapes or when not to pick the grapes. Give you a quick example for your viewers. When you take a grape, a lot of times you'll see that white powder on the outside of the grape. That's tannin. That's the magic ingredient that changes the grape juice to alcohol. Now, you want to get the grape nice and ripe. So at the end of the growing season, the vintage owner goes out and he's looking, wants to get them ripe, but if he waits too long, or if you get a rain and all that powder goes away, you've got a problem. So it's really an art form. But in the last 15 to 20 years, like everything else in our life, computers have played an important role. So at some of your great institutions now across the world, Davis at Berkeley, Toulouse in France, Bologna in Italy, Barcelona, all of these places now use computers. So the soil composition that you're growing in the grape in, that molecular structure goes into a computer. Everything else, every growing minute goes into the computer. So they know basically if there's a variation, how to counteract that. And they come up with recipes, we call it a recipe, but it's formulations that will give you, that's like on this table. And this is what's important to your viewer. If they come away with nothing other than today, that you have some wines, and we have a bunch of them here.
Is there a correct wine to go with certain foods?
Absolutely, if you listen to the experts, which I don't anymore. Early on, obviously, if you get a tremendously big wine, and you're having something that's very soft, okay, or something that's a mild, let's say like fish. Well, obviously, you know, you can go the other way and go with the white. But I'm glad you touched on that subject. Again, your perception is amazing. But I tell you what, you touched on a subject that your viewers will be interested in. Not only the red and white wine industry has taken off, but here's something that goes with everything and people overlook it. At this end of the table, I don't know if can the camera get that?
Just barely, not really.
Not really. Right. Whoa, let's take a look and put it here for a second.
Wow, that's a big bottle.
That's a big bottle. Okay?
Is that called a Magnum? Or is that...
No, that's called a Jeroboam. That is a big bottle of Dom Perignon. We don't have to get into what it is. It's a fancy, beautiful, great wine. Champagne, though. And I use that word champagne because in the district of Champagne where it's made, if it's not made within that district, it's sparkling wine. But as we've been talking about the technology and how great it is for your consumers and viewers to buy these wines, that is included. Let me explain to you why. The same technology for the red and white wines are used for that. Most people don't realize it. But when you're making a champagne, they think, oh, you're only using the white grape. No. If you take a red grape and squeeze it, you know what color the juice is when it comes out?
No.
White. It's white. It only gets the color by leaving the skins in what they call the must. And that period of time, it picks up the color.
I see.
Well, the same technology that's used to make all these great wines, and as I said, it's becoming more prevalent because people are eating more fish, seafood, is they're drinking sparkling wine, champagne. But let me give you a for instance. I went to a tasting, oh God, it had to be about a year or so ago. And we had two, I'm not going to mention their name and embarrass them, but two big brokers, very big. Both of the brokers are champagne brokers. And they're dealing with, never mind Danker, Taninger, Bollingers, Crystal Rodier. Have you ever heard of Crystal Rodier?
No.
Right. Crystal Rodier is an interesting champagne. It's probably one of the most expensive. The theory is when you get champagne, it usually comes from Spanish, sometimes the Corte Negro, Freshinet's in a black bottle, or most champagnes are in green bottles. Crystal Rodier comes through with a clear bottle. The reason being is that the legend is that the champagne is so clear, the House of Rodier, the symbol, is on the back of the label. And the legend is you can turn the bottle around, look through it, and see Rodier on the back of the label, go right through the champagne. It's extremely expensive. An absolutely exquisite champagne. Okay? They have a Louis Rodier vineyard and winery in California. As does Mom's Cordon Rouge, Moet Chandon, Tattingers. Okay? Well, we went to a tasting. Now, they make out in California something called the Louis Rodier Champagne. It is made with the same method Champagnon, that they use to make the Crystal Rodier. At the tasting, we had Crystal Rodier. And some wise guy snuck in a bottle of the Louis Rodier California Champagne, which you have to call by law sparkling wine. So if you buy any of the California champagne, it never says champagne, it says sparkling wine. They don't want to get in trouble with the French and the lawsuits. So it says sparkling wine. Long story short, everybody's doing the same thing. You know which wine they picked out on the vertical tasting?
The California.
$15 a bottle. Louis Rodier's hundreds of dollars a bottle. Okay. It's an exquisite wine. It is an unbelievable champagne. And champagne in California, and do not overlook the Spanish. The Spanish have been making some unbelievable champagnes, sparkling wines, as do the Italians. The Italians in the last 15 years have gone crazy with that area.
How did you get involved in wine? I know because you've told me before, but I'd like for you to kind of share that again. Have you been in wine cellars since you were a child, 8 years old, 5 years old?
It's interesting. I think your viewers may find it comical, but you know, I lived in New York. I was very fortunate to be privileged with parents, particularly grandparents, that took an interest in me. My grandfather I always relate to as Don Quixote.
Did your grandfather make wines or collect wines?
Well, he made wines, but mostly collected wines. My grandfather was interesting is because wine, women, and song was his big thing. But he was an excellent optical person. That's a whole other story. But he was European background. So at the age of 8, of course, I knew everything. So he decided maybe you don't, and he took me to Europe. And that was my first introduction. And a lot of things happened there. But he lived in New York for a while and had a fairly good-sized property in Pennsylvania where he had a wine cellar, which is interesting. He built it way out, not anywhere near the house. He always told everybody it was the bomb shelter. Well, he was usually getting bombed at the bomb shelter, but anyway, he had the wine cellar. And one summer, at that age, I was trying to keep up with all the young guys I was going to school with. And the big thing then was a 3-speed English racing bike.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the money for it. It was $80 at that time. It was, you know, mid-50s. It's unbelievable amount of money. And I asked my grandfather, who wouldn't give me the money. He says, look, if you help me clean up this wine cellar this summer, then I will take care of the bike, which I did. And I hated it. Mm-hmm. You got to take the old, it's spiders, mold, rats, you name it. Moldy, horrible. Got through the whole summer. Now I'm waiting for $80, and he says, listen, when you get back to school, I'll get it to your parents, blah, 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 fine. I started school and looking for the money because everybody else was riding the bike on their new English-made 3-speed races, and I didn't have any. I had a swing, no speed, mm-hmm. which they made fun of me with, but finally, my parents said, your grandfather said something now. Great, let's go to the bicycle shop. I said, no, this is what he said. I said, that's what he said?
Your grandfather sent you a bottle of wine?
Sent me a bottle of wine. I'm like 9. I said, what am I going to do? So my mother said, well, he sent this too. This is the name of somebody. And when we go into Manhattan, you have to bring that bottle and to this man at the store. And I was really disappointed. I was just heartbroken, but really disappointed because I wanted the bike. Anyway, long story short, about a week later we did go to Manhattan. My mother did. I wasn't even interested at that point. I was dejected. We went there. I took the note and the bottle and went to the store. We looked for the man's name. He came out. Wow. Took the bottle and gave me $3. Mm-hmm. Again, dejected. Now, how can my grandfather do that to me? I mean, I worked almost 3 solid months in that rat hole. At that time, I thought it was a rat hole. I mean, it just really, so I came out and I was complaining to my mother and my father, who were laughing. My mother says to me, look at the $3. No, it wasn't $3, it was $300.
Oh, it was a check. So
no,
a check.
It was cash.
Oh, it was cash.
I never seen $100 bill.
Oh, it was 3.
I never seen $100.
It was 3 bills.
Yeah, I mean, you're telling me, well, yeah, 3 bills. I thought it was $3.
Right.
It was $300.
I see.
So after I caught my breath, I did go out and buy the bike. But what I started doing with the extra money is I started buying books. Mm-hmm. And I started reading them and something. And then thanks to my grandfather, he was a walking encyclopedia. Mm-hmm. And then with the trips to Europe, I started paying more attention. And as my knowledge increased, my grandfather's cellar was substantial. And he had a great inkling for some of the great wines. And when I started to understand what they were, I said, wait a minute, Grandpa. You want to leave something for me, don't you, for the later years? Drink some of the cheap stuff, will you? So that's basically how I got started. And then as we went to Europe, my grandfather, in those days, there were no computers, no cell phones, there weren't even a radio. We would rent a car and then just drive around. And my grandfather knew early on that the best education sometimes is hands-on. Mm-hmm. And he took me to southern France. He took me to the town of Pouliac. He took me through the Bordeaux area. Mm-hmm. And I started understanding that all of the offish attitudes that Parisian Afro-Americans, we didn't see in southern France in the wine industry. If you showed a little respect for them and what they do, because to them it's just not a product, it's a form of art, which really it is. Their heart and soul, their whole family is in this thing. And they would reciprocate. And one of the great stories was we were going through, he rented something called, I don't think you're going to know what I'm talking about, some of your viewers would, a French Citron. Mm-hmm. What a hunk of junk. This is the one that made a Volkswagen Bug look like a Rolls Royce. You know, the engine was about this big. Horrible, horrible thing. And we're driving all through southern France. We go into the Bordeaux district and we're in Pouliac. So my grandfather, and I know a little bit at that time, wanted to take some photographs, and there was a bus tour of the great vineyards of the Rothschild. Chateau Philippe de Rothschild, across the street again, Chateau Mouton Rothschild. So at that time, the state of the art, now you're using a very sophisticated piece of equipment. Back then, the sophisticated piece of equipment was something called a Kodak Brownie, this little box camera, and I had one. I got it for Christmas, and I was quite proud of it. It took little black and white pictures, and I thought it was really, for me, state of the art. So my grandfather, when we were there, says, listen, you're taking a picture of me. I'm taking a picture of you. Find somebody so we can take a picture together. I says, great. So I looked around, I saw an old guy picking grapes. Dungarees, you know, so I said, pardon me, sir, do you speak English? He turned around and said, yes, I do. I said, would you mind taking a picture of my grandfather and I? Oh, of course, son. He says, you go right over there. I gave him the camera, go to put my arm around my grandfather, who scared the hell out of me because I thought he was having a heart attack. He kept hyperventilating. And I you know, at my age, I didn't know. I thought he was having a heart attack. And then finally he came over and he grabbed this old guy, and I didn't know what was going on until my grandfather says, come here. Says, this is the Baron Philippe de Rothschild. Huh? In dungarees, an old sweater, dirty boots, right? Picking grapes. Mm-hmm. So obviously we got the picture. We got him in the picture. But what he did was, he was impressed that my grandfather took it upon himself to explain to me, not knowing anything, mm-hmm. some of the idiosyncrasies and some of the culture. As I said, a little bit of respect goes a long way. Mm-hmm. So he asked us, he said, are you with the bus tour? I said, no, he says, will you come with me and I'll give you the tour. And I'll never forget that. We went into the cellars that they don't see on the bus tour. And you would see these cuvées, and you would look, you would have these plaques out with numbers, 1912, 1900, 1865, and you keep walking and walking. And then you get at the very end, and he had some 1790 something, not a lot.
1790, wow.
Yeah, and I, you know, trying to get my little light bulb thing and, you know, taking the pictures. And it was a great experience. Mm-hmm. It was something that stayed with me for a long time. Now, years later, probably in the, I think early 70s, there was a marketing company in New York called Buckingham. And I'm going back, I'm trying to put the whole thing together. And they were coming out with a commercial grade, what we call table wine. Mm-hmm. And you see it today all over the place. Mouton Cadet. And it's a nice wine, it's a table wine. I mean, it's not Chateau Mouton Rothschild, but they used his name. Mm-hmm. So for promotion purposes, he came to New York, and a lot of the wine emporiums that sold the wine, PR people, brokers, they came, of which I had an invitation. Mm-hmm. Well, I knew about it prior to that. Well, I went home and I got the picture.
From the Browning camera?
From the Browning
when you were a child?
I had him blow it up to me. So I had the picture and I went, and everybody, you shake hands, you take a picture, you shake hands. You know, he signed something, you know, usual PR. So I came my turn, I go up, I'm shaking hands. And when he went to sign, I said, would you mind signing this? And I gave him the picture. And he looked at the picture. Now, obviously, he didn't know me, my grandfather, but he knew himself. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me and he says, oh my God. He says, is that you? I said, yes. And he smiled. He says, you're not the same size. I says, I know. And he signed it. He gave me some other stuff. And it was a great feeling. It really solidified everything that I was told by my grandfather. My grandfather was an interesting person because he saw in this product something that most people don't see, is that's their life. Mm-hmm. That represents them. And then try it.
Is it fair to say that regardless of the type of wine, I should buy a 90 point or better wine? Is that what you're sharing with us?
You want to buy a high point number, yeah. Now that
there
doesn't
some
automatically guarantee It's going to be what you like.
Is there a chance that I might be a 60 and I like a 70 type wine, or?
Well, a 60 or a 70 you probably will never see.
Okay.
For the reason that, let's take a Riesling, very sweet one. But if it's 50 or 60, they had a bad year, it's not even going to get on the shelf.
I see.
They won't even put it. They'll put it out, but no rating.
Okay.
So the ratings are going to be usually 85 or above.
Okay.
Okay, you have to look at that. But you may find something that's not rated. Yeah, I mean, it happens.
Right.
There's hundreds of thousands of wine. I'll give you a perfect example. I know your viewers are going to say, what did he say and where do I get it? I'll say it and good luck, because like everybody else, we're trying to find it. In Spain, in the Rioja district, there is a wine called Abadía Ritietza. Abadía being an old Spanish Catholic, church, and they make wine. They made wine for hundreds of years. Now here in this country, we have a company called Johnson & Johnson, a big pharmaceutical company. In Europe, there's also a company, and I'm trying to think of the name of it now. It'll come to me. It's that big. They bought Abadía Ritietza. Okay? They have their headquarters in, of all places, East Hanover, New Jersey. Okay? They bought Abadía Ritietza. And they went to the winemakers and said, listen, we're giving you a blank check. I want a great wine made here in Spain. I'm tired of going to France and California and Germany and Italy. I know we can do better. And they started making the wine. Now 10, 15 years later, every year in England, because England was one of the few places where you go to school and you can get a master's of wine. That takes years to get. But they have all the big brokers, everybody comes from all over the world. They taste like 10,000 wines over a month. And then they give you the best rosé, the best French champagne, white wine. They break it down. Once in a blue moon, they get a wine that they think is so outstanding that they will rate that as the best wine made in the world. Abadía Ritietza, about 6 years ago, got that distinction for a red wine over Rioja that night. Okay? From that point on, it wasn't $6, $7 anymore. You can't get it. But if you happen to be in East Hanover, New Jersey, where their pharmaceutical plant is, they couldn't bring in the wine legally without getting permits through the states. Okay? Well, right down the street, probably a couple of blocks, is an J.R. cigar store. A cigar store. What a hell of a story this is. And they have a little wall and they sell some wine. In order to meet the criteria to be legal, they used their license to bring in the wine. So you have to go, now it's probably sold in different places now, but 3 years ago, you had to go to the cigar store to buy it. The problem being when it came in, it usually went out the next day. Because the Abadía Ritietza is a red wine, it's a Rioja. It is unbelievably smooth. It's like liquid silk. But there again, that's exactly what I'm explaining to you. And it's not inexpensive wine. Wasn't at that time. Navarres, that's another company.
When we go out to dinner and we're looking at wines to go with our meal, do you have any advice for us on how to ask the restaurant for assistance or direction or ideas?
This is my grandfather always had a great cure for that. I used to do the same thing, and my grandfather would tell his friends, when you go to a restaurant with a bottle of wine, hold on to your wallet. Put your hand on the wallet and hold on to your wallet. Okay? Restaurants are notorious. What they're going to do is try to get wines that you can't buy in the store. Okay? They're looking, when their brokers come in, like down here in Florida, Southern Wine and Spirits, which is great for them. They supply wines to the restaurant. They want to get something that you're not going to go and find at Publix.
Right.
For the reason being, you go into Publix, say, geez, I paid $40, it's over here for 10. Okay, that's not great PR.
Right.
So the general rule is if you go in to a restaurant, you want to get something that is usually the lowest price. They're not going to put any wine that tastes lousy, no matter what the price. Try to get something at a lower price. Don't worry about impressing somebody with a great. You want a great bottle of wine, you buy it, you take it home, you have your friends over. When you go out to a restaurant, the other thing is the white wines usually, and the other thing you have to look at, if you're going to pay a lot of money for a red wine or even a white wine, you're better off looking at their domestic or California champagnes because they are excellent quality and it goes with everything. That people overlook that. But I'll give you a perfect example. I told you about the Louis Rodier, Schlamsberg, Mums, Moet, any of those have California vineyards. Now, Moet Chandon has a vineyard in Napa, and you can buy Chandon. It's $15, $16 a bottle. My God, the quality of the wine, the champagne is unbelievable. Now, it's not legal champagne, but it's not made there. And most times it's better. So if you're going out with somebody at dinner, and what is more apropos than if you have a guest having a bottle of champagne? And you don't have to worry, it's going to go with fish, it's going to go with fowl, it goes with everything. And you're much better off, and you'll have a great time.
So order a California champagne that is actually called a Noir. What is?
Absolutely, California, a Spanish, and Italian.
Okay.
First
of all, that's a shipping sleeve around it. It's not. That's not the way it normally looks. That just arrived this week.
Yeah, it came like that. My good friend up in New York, when I asked for it, was laughing because, including myself, it embarrassed me many times. They would slip it into a tasting of some very sophisticated California Cabernets, and I mean some really expensive things. And you know, you're standing there, you're swirling the wine. You know, it's the Napa Valley, you know, Sonoma, Alexandria, China. It's made in China. But I'm telling you, the quality of that wine and what they put into it, what you don't see is how much money they spent to get at that level. And they went nuts. You know, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. For somebody who's looking to diversify investments, the French wines are something to think about. Or any of the wines that, you know, have great value because you buy them, don't drink them, and then you wind up like this. Now this is just a sample. This is one of Peter
Morel and Company Fine Wine Auctions. So there are auctions in the wine industry.
And the money is substantial. And it doesn't just have to be French wines. I'll give you this to look at, then you can show your viewers. This is a California Cabernet Sauvignon. And this wine is made in California. And it is collectible because they make a very small amount of it. And at the same time, because of the low quantity, well, here, take a look at some of the numbers. You got your reading glasses on?
I do. I mean, I can see.
Look at the left there at some of the prices.
I'm seeing $1,900, $1,800. Is this one is that 12,000 for a bottle of wine?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. It's just, you know, what they're doing is that they have these set up so that all of the wines become collectible because of the low production numbers.
Right.
And because of that, it's a great investment.
How would you go about picking a wine merchant, a qualified wine merchant? How do you decide on where to buy your wine?
You know, then again, that's a personal thing because of the inner service that you're going to get. What I would tell them is this. I'm only using this as an example. I'm not pushing it. The Total Wines, those floor people go through extensive training so that they are extremely well educated in what is on the floor, 10,000 different types of wine, so they can guide you. One that you're comfortable with. You ask a question, he gives you a straight answer. And then when they recommend something, it's working out for you. So that you have that type of relationship, you're going to have a great time. And remember, the most important thing today is take a look. Don't look at the price. Look at the numbers. Go out and try them. Make your own criteria and enjoy it. A hell of a time to be drinking wine. It really is.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me here.
It was worth it to see the look on your face when you saw the bottle for $12,000.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, before you leave, we've got something for you that is going to be a novelty. It's not worth $12,000, but it is a novelty. The Chinese Cabernet Sauvignon.
Wow. Wow,
you're not going to find that in any store. You're going to have a great time with that. It is absolutely exquisite wine that you're going to enjoy. And this one, whether you open it or not, the Los Foscos Lafite, you have to get online and take a look of the manufacturing. And that will explain to you what we were talking about.
Thank you very much.
Reverence and respect for the product.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching today. There are many more ideas, suggestions, and helpful tips and templates at my site, timforrest.com.